The Beyond the Fame podcast is fed by Lido Pizza. Lido Pizza never cuts corners. For menu and locations, visit LidoPizza.com. And of course, this podcast would not be possible without our longtime title sponsor, the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. Upcoming featured entertainment includes Bret Michaels' Birthday Bash on April 11th and Earthquake on April 12th. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Five-time Emmy nominee Amy Brenneman stars in the comedy Fake It Until You Make It at Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. now through May 4th. She joined me to explain why the play is so hilarious, and to discuss her career highlights from NYPD Blue to Judging Amy, from Private Practice to The Leftovers. Hey, Amy Brenneman, hey, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Thank you for having me.
We are talking because you are starring in the Arena Stage show Fake It Until You Make It. I love the title. It's running now through May 4th. Hey, thanks for doing this.
Thank you. It's what we had our first preview last night, so I am all like nice and tired and husky.
Yeah, but also now you've had it, run in front of an actual audience, at least a preview audience. So it's cool to actually talk to you now as opposed to, before you even put it up on its feet. You're still electrified from that first preview. So I guess I should start. How did it go last night?
I thought it went really well. Previews mean that you rehearse during the day, and we still have our beautiful playwright, our brilliant Larissa Fausthorst with us. So a preview is a preview. So we have paid audiences, but every day we're going to work on things and she's going to tweak things. But I was really happy. I had a friend come who enjoyed it. And then even more, two people who I didn't know, two audience members wanted to talk about it and they loved it. They were so that's why I love live theater, because we get to be in the room with the audience and have a chat afterwards. And I thought it went very well.
That's awesome. All right. Well, before we get any further, we should remind folks who are just tuning into this and maybe haven't even heard about it, what the general premise is. So explain this, nonprofit setting, the rivalry between you as River and Winona. You give us the basic setup.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a farce. So everything I say to you, which, might sound heavy, like race and identity politics, it is a farce. We get to laugh at things that kind of often make me cry in the real world. So the setup is there's a not building with nonprofits that are for Indigenous serving nonprofits. And Winona is one of those people, and she's an Indigenous woman, and I drive her nuts. My name is River. And I am white, and I have a nonprofit called Indigenous Nation Soaring, or INS. But Larissa goes out of her way to say that, River does do good work, Winona does do good work, and kind of hijinks ensue. And it's really about who gets to decide one's own identity, how that's supported by the culture. And there's door slamming. There's like this cat that figures in quite prominently. So it's one of those things where hopefully I did. I mean, I sat in the audience as well in a previous incarnation. You laugh your ass off. I don't know if I can say that.
Go
And
for
then,
it. Yeah. No,
and then
no words are off limits.
And then you go, huh, those are really profound ideas. So she's kind of this alchemist where you're not aware of how controversial these ideas are until maybe in the bar after the play. You're like, wait, what? Because it goes down. So it's 90 minutes. It is not quite literally nonstop for the audience and for us.
An uproarious comedy and a farce. It's going to be
Yes.
great. And that's interesting what you're saying, because sometimes you said it makes it go down easier and smoother when it's a comedy, but it's so true. And I mean, Arena Stage is great at doing the dramas, of course, on Indigenous topics, etc. In other situations. But in this case, I almost feel like you might. I mean, do you think you might reach more people who, under the guise of a comedy, and you know what I mean? Like, it's a way to kind of reach a broader audience, because makes the medicine go down, the sugar.
100%. 100%. I think comedy is, with this crazy moment in our country's history, I think we need a new language. And I think farce might be one. I think we're slightly in an absurd moment,
Right.
where, even no matter what your politics are, it's like when you say, it's like, I believe this, but I'm voting for this. It's like, what the F is going on?
We
And
need
I
our
think
Dr. Strangeloves. This might be our era, you know?
Yes, yeah, yeah. No, and the artists are rising up. I mean, I am
Yeah.
so proud, to be in the army of artists that are responding to this moment, and I think Larissa is chief among them.
Absolutely. And talk about sort of doing it at arena stage. And you're mentioning, I would like to kind of go into that a little bit because there's so much, especially in this town, there's so much politicization at the Kennedy Center right now. But arena has always been sort of on the vanguard of socially conscious plays. I remember God, who was the original Wiz, Andre DeShields, did an August Wilson play, and we talked to him for arena stage, and he broke down the root of the word entertainment as to hold and to change. And that always stuck with me. And so I've always thought of arena as this arena of ideas where we kick around political ideas, social ideas, but to do it in a comedy is great. But working at arena stage itself, why is that such a great training ground for ideas?
Uh, Arena's been on my bucket list for a really long time. And right before we came here a couple of weeks ago, I thought, wow, it really seems like the right thing to do a comedy in the nation's capital right now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that just seems correct for my particular skill set. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's I love that quote from Andre DeShields, and I think it's all about humanity, right? And I think that listen, if I am given a role or I choose to take a role, let's say I'm playing somebody whose political views are very different from my own, da da da. Part of my job is to develop empathy, and I know that's become sort of a loaded word, which is hilarious to me because I
Right.
think it's literally our superpower of
Right.
like, wow, and that's what art does, right? So you're sitting and you're like, wow, I don't agree with that character, but I understand that character, and I
Mhm.
can't sort of other them or vilify them, and it sort of opens up this discussion. Um, because you're talking about a third thing, right? What I mean by we need a new language right now. I think the screaming at each other, I scream at you, you scream at me. Oftentimes we're doing it anonymously on social media, which is like, insane, and we're sort of reaching the end of that, right?
Yeah, it's awful.
So I think that a piece of art is a third thing, right? So you and I get to look
Mhm.
at a thing together, and we're not so attacked, right? Literally, our fight flight doesn't go up as much. It's like, oh, let's look at this thing, and
Mhm.
how does it make you feel? And oh, you feel that you get to sort of have a little bit of detachment about it. I will add to Mr. DeShield's brilliance with this image that I actually have in my dressing room. I was in Cuba in June and went to this wonderful photography studio, and some of the photographs were very famous of Che and Fidel, and then there was this one of a soldier, and he had a machine gun on one hand and or over one shoulder and a trombone over the other shoulder. And
Wow.
I
And
asked
which is more powerful? Yeah.
Right, I asked the woman about it. I was like, why isn't this a famous photo? And she said, well, because during the Bay of Pigs, it was literally during the Bay of Pigs, and they wanted to say like, no, we're really tough soldiers, which they were, but because they're Cubans and they're in the woods waiting for their, orders, they bring out their instruments and they make music. And that has been, as an artist, my image. That's why I carry it with me of like, I am absolutely a soldier for peace and equity and justice. But I do it in this arena. So I have like the weapon on the one hand and the art making on the other. And I think that because of that, we're deep, like, I'm like, wow, should I be doing a farce right now? Life is so serious. It's like, well, I think so. I think all hands on deck, and there's many ways to enter into this discussion, and I think comedy is probably a big one.
It's natural that you're asking yourself that question, but I think the answer is it's precisely because this is this heated time that we need the farce to break through it. Like you're
I
saying, I
think
think you're
so.
spot on. And also just not only in the nation's capital as, yeah, like we're saying politically with government here, but also this is literally the town where the football team was named, a word that is no longer said now, and now they changed it to the Commanders, and we just say the burgundy and gold, but we know as a Native American mascot controversy is happening right around where you're doing this play. Has that factored in? Has anyone talked about that in the rehearsals about how DC has kind of been grappling with this issue for a while now in terms
No,
of sports?
although I'm definitely going to bring it up in rehearsal today.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, I think that the original people of whatever lands, and
Yeah.
in our case it's the Native Americans, but I'm sure the Aboriginal cultures in Australia, they got a long view of
Yeah.
what's going on right
Uh-huh.
now. And I think, for us whippersnapper or, for the, colonizer Americans, of which I am a descendant, it's like, what's happening? And they're like, so I think that, I'm involved in this one group and I this is a couple of years ago when Roe was overturned and I just was shocked. I mean, that sort of like put me into that, well, anything could happen, kind of like, wow, there's
Yeah.
no set, I come from lawyers and judges. It's like I thought there was settled law and there's not, right? And that's one kind of one naive point of view that I've had to wrestle with. Like each generation probably has to stand up for what they believe, and what we're gonna stand for. And I was on this Zoom with this older African American activist who was probably in her 80s, and we just were like, wow, just a gut punch. And then she was like, but I'll show up tomorrow. Like the way she said it was like, right, there's going to be enormously challenging moments. And we just keep showing up, So I think that and again with Larissa's, specifically in this play, she is not as an Indigenous writer wallowing in anything, wallowing in victimhood, wallowing in identity politics. Like she's just has this incredible ability to look at kind of the whole thing.
Right.
And honestly, every character in this, whether they're Indigenous or white, um, first of all, you feel her love for the characters, which is really important. That's kind of why I signed on to things. I was like, does the writer literally like a mother loving a child? Like, does the writer love the character, even if,
Right.
all she clearly does. And every character has moments of heroism and ridiculousness. There's no one villain. It just keeps shifting. And that's very hard to do. That, and she does that, I think, quite well.
Right. Yeah. It's this isn't Killers of the Flower Moon, which was also brilliant, but on the other
No,
spectrum,
correct.
where
Yeah,
there's like De Niro is just bad. He's a villain.
right.
But in this, like
It's
you're saying,
not.
it morphs. I love how yeah, there's degrees to it.
It
Uh,
morphs, and like, as you know, I'm Amy Brenneman's a white person trying to do good, and how do I, so I mean River's sort of like ridiculous in some ways and really
yeah.
relatable to me in a lot of ways.
Right, exactly. And you find the humanity in the characters you take on.
You have
Um,
to.
well, I mean, folks, if you're not excited to see the show after that, then I don't know what are you doing with your life? You got to go see it. But I would love we can wrap back around to the play at the end of this if you want. But I would love whenever I have huge stars on like yourself. I mean, you're a 5-time Emmy nominee for Pete's sake. But I always love to sort of remind folks sort of your journey because it always inspires our up and coming listeners and stuff. So I know you were born and raised in Connecticut. What sort of movies or plays or theater, sparked you growing up? Were you like, oh, I'm gonna watch The Wizard of Oz every day? I don't know. That's just one I
Yeah,
fill in
yeah,
the
yeah.
blank. But what was your thing that sort of sparked it for you, you think?
Yeah, great question. So again, like I said, I do not come from anywhere near the industry. I didn't even really learn about the industry until in my mid or late 20s, and I'm not joking.
Right.
But we had this really wonderful woman who's still in my life who ran kind of a community theater program, which was stable and fun and very communal, meaning if you got the lead in one production, you knew you were going to be in the chorus in the next. Like it was a rotation of leadership thing, which
Oh,
I've always loved ensemble. It was not like we're grooming stars and then you get a commercial. It was opposite of that. Um, so right, I remember being 11 years old and going and Hartford Stage, which is where we would go see theater, which is still a wonderful theater. Did a production of Three Sisters, I think.
oh.
And I was just stabbed to the heart about like what a play could do. And the Arena had the youngest daughter's name is Arena, and ironically, like Arena's name. And
No, it's all that was foreshadowing.
she
Good
had
job,
I had blonde
Chekhov.
hair at the time. I cut my hair to be like her. It wasn't like I want to be an actress, but like I just was really impacted by it. And then I would say a movie was Ordinary People.
Oh,
Um,
so good.
it
Redford.
really got to me, and like my family was going through some stuff. I mean, nothing tragic like that, but I just remember like, wow, what is the combination of again with empathy? Like I am feeling this to my core as if it's my family, and I was really fascinated by that. Um,
Man, by the way, before we move off of that, Mary Tyler Moore just
I
shows a
mean,
complete, well, and
well,
Donald Sutherland, rest in peace, but both of them rest in pease. But she sort of showed a different side in that role. It was
right,
unbelievable.
right. So you kind of, I grew up watching her amazing TV show, and then I was
Yeah,
like, oh, right, maybe on some level, what an actress could do. Like,
yeah.
wow, like she had. Then I went to college, and
Harvard,
um,
right?
I went to Harvard again. Didn't major in theater because there was no major. There was no theater major at that point. There still is barely. So I majored in comparative religion, which I loved.
Nice.
But a whole bunch of us met, started doing. I've always liked ensemble. I'm a collaborative art maker. That's what I love. I love being in a group, figuring stuff out together. So we met, a bunch of us, and started a company called Cornerstone Theater,
Mhm.
that is still ongoing and interesting. Michael Garces, who is directing Fake It Till You Make It, my friend Bill Roush ran it for years, and then Michael took it over. And then Bill went on to run Oregon Shakespeare Festival for a long time. So I did Cornerstone. I was on the road for about 6 years. We did community-based, site-specific theater. So we would create pieces of theater with community members who were not professional at all, right? I mean, but they had it really ground us in like what what can theater do? And we can tell the truth about communities, and it just was a beautiful way to spend my 20s, honestly. And then it really was after that. I was a total theater baby. I had no interest in film and television, but it was time to make a living, and I got a headshot. And then in kind of short order, got on NYPD Blue and Heat, and started doing movies. And then for me, the bringing it all together thing was creating Judging Amy, because that I was like, oh, cool. I'm gonna use this new medium of television, but have some say in it. I always felt slightly uncomfortable being an actor for hire just because I'm bossy, and I just like,
Yeah,
but also it's very much like a theater company because we stayed together for 6 years,
yeah.
and then yeah, so, and then private practice. Then I went into streaming with The Leftovers and The Old Man, and now that my kids are older, I'm doing much more theater. Theater for me was not very family friendly.
Yeah.
But my kids are older now, so I get to do my thing.
Awesome. I would love to break down a deeper dive on some of those roles that you were rattling off because it's amazing. I have questions on pretty much all of them. I'll try to pick my spots here.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Are you a leftovers person? That's
oh,
usually,
absolutely.
yeah,
And I'm good, but
yeah.
I'm going to try to get there somewhat chronologically. Yeah, my brother and I
Okay.
binged The Leftovers, and it's one of the
Okay.
most underrated, amazing, most amazing shows ever
Mm.
created in my mind. So we'll get to the guilty remnant in a minute.
Yeah.
But so NYPD Blue, really quick. I was just talking to Amy Kane and Michael Mann's daughter, about
Oh.
working on that for a little bit. But anyway, so you earned two Emmy nods on that nominations, supporting actress and guest actress.
Mhm.
Just memories of working on that show. You were in like
Her
season
name was,
one,
yeah, her name was Janice LaCalci. She was a bad cop. So in the pilot of NYPD Blue, I shot two guys at point blank range in the face and took my clothes off. Yay! Welcome to Hollywood.
yeah, in the early '90s. Yeah.
I was David Caruso's gal.
Right.
So it was, yeah, it was crazy. It was like being in the Beatles. I mean, it was like it just exploded and was very controversial. And
Yeah.
I met my husband
Yeah.
doing NYPD Blue. So it was really this very formative time. I really didn't know what I was getting into. I like noisy things. I mean, I never shy away from it. It interests me. So when it got noisy, I was like, great. This was pre-streaming. So we were basically, Stephen Bochco was trying to kind of do streaming before there was streaming.
Yep.
So it was really exciting, really raw, really, the opposite of glamour, which is what I like. And
Right.
it was crazy. I mean, David Caruso was brilliant and just a whirlwind, and it had a very, so I was basically, what happened once I started producing television, I realized the problem that my character was boxed into was I really never did time for killing those guys. And the reason, there was a wonderful plot reason. I was actually, showing up for my dad, and I was a very heroic, although damaged person.
Mm.
But yeah, at a certain point, the writers were like, "You got to go to jail." So I went to jail.
That's a
But at that point, I was doing movies and had sort of
Yeah,
said,
yeah, of course. Well, you mentioned you met that's where you met your eventual husband, Brad Silberling. I believe a DC native. So all these DC ties here at Arena
yeah,
Stage here, right?
yeah,
But so I guess '95 was a big year for you. So you married Brad, who directs you that year in Casper, aren't you? Christina Ricci's the ghost of her or
mhm,
angel of her mother, right?
yep, yep.
So that must have been fun working with your husband on that. But I guess I really want to ask you about from that year. You mentioned Heat, and we mentioned Michael Mann. So I have to kind of ask. You play Edie, right? De Niro's girlfriend in that one.
Yep.
Everyone talks about De Niro, Pacino sharing the screen. Well, Godfather 2, but that was different timelines. But we've seen partners in this. Everyone's talking about that. But then you got Val Kilmer coming in there, rest in peace this week. But coming in there, almost stealing the show in some of these. Do you agree when you watch that? Like Kilmer
Oh
really
yeah.
breaks through.
Oh, yeah, him and Sizemore. But no, I totally agree. And part of what's so well, first of all, Val's just beautiful, just a physically beautiful movie star in that movie.
Stud.
But also he's an acolyte of Bob, so there's
Right.
this vulnerability. And then also his relationship with Ashley Judd. And I agree. I mean, I just love that performance and love that relationship between Bob and Val.
Yeah, rest in peace.
Yeah.
I mean, he had just come off of Tombstone, right? And
Yeah.
was about to be Batman around that same time. So yeah,
Yeah.
Heat's my favorite Michael Mann movie, probably. I mean, I'm sure I'm not
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and then there's so many we'd have to skip. I mean, we don't even have time to go into your recurring role in Frasier as Faye Musquith. Like, we're gonna have to move along. But let's get to judging, Amy. You kind of mentioned it, creating it and starring in it on CBS. It runs what, 99 to 2005. It was a really good run. You were,
Yeah.
divorced single mom working as family court judge. And did I read that was based on your own mom's experience?
Yeah, yeah. My
Yeah.
mom and I essentially created it was kind of her idea, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when I got into television and she was in the first class of women at Harvard Law School where she met my dad and third female judge in the state of Connecticut. But she was put on the bench in 1967. It's so funny to think about all these laws that like some fuckers would like to, I don't think they'll ever, but there was a very famous Supreme Court case called In re Gault in 67. And basically what it did was afford minors constitutional rights, which they didn't really have before. It was sort of like, kids were sort of honestly how females used to be, not full citizens. So after that decision, there had to be a new branch of government built out called juvenile justice. So my mom was in Connecticut, they called it juvenile court judge. And she did delinquency and neglect really was her incredible contribution to that. So it's like figuring out when a child isn't being taken care of or I mean, there's a
Mm,
general, I think this is still kind of true that female judges are better in those cases because males, this is very gendered, but they go nuts, right? They want to punish the parent,
right.
actually, if there is a way to preserve that biological connection, you want to do it and you want to allow a parent or mom to get sober, take care of, it's just this balancing act and this nuance of relationships. So basically, long story short, when I started doing television and she was like, why isn't there a show about juvenile justice? And because, and I was like, I don't know, whatever. And then I did she had a big birthday and Brad and I spent 2 days in the Hartford court. And so people could say, happy birthday, Judge Brenneman. And there were probation officers and social workers and lawyers. And I was like, she's right. This is actually a very rich world.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I pitched it and they bought it. I never thought they'd buy it. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew the tone of the show. And so it was very much based on time. I mean, ultimately the incredible Tyne Daly made it all her own. But at the beginning, it was really me and my mom. That was the mother-daughter relationship. And the way I pitched it was like, what about being the daughter of a trailblazer, right? I mean, we always hear about trailblazers, but I was the
Yeah.
daughter of a trailblazer. So there's both inspiration and also like it's just a big shadow. So yeah, and set it in Central Connecticut, and Barbara Hall came in and just kind of nailed it. And then Brad directed the pilot, so he essentially was directing the depiction of his mother-in-law. So it was all pretty
That's an interesting situation.
much.
That is great. That is great. Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably your most, at least, iconic thing people associate with you. Three more Emmy nominations, right? Outstanding lead
Yeah.
actress, and we just
Yeah.
there are no winners and losers, folks. But we will shake our
Oh,
fist at Cell Award for once and again,
you
and
can
Edie
shake your fist.
Falco for
It was
Sopranos, and
Edie
Allison
Falco, man.
Janney.
It's like being up against the Beatles. What are you going to do? It's The
Yeah.
Sopranos. You know?
Sopranos and Jenny and West Wing. Come on, but
It was a big
but
time. It was a big
great
time.
time for television. But you teased it earlier, and I know we're up against the clock, so I want to now get to the big one that I love is HBO's The Leftovers. It runs 2014 to 2017, I think. You're Justin Theroux's wife, Laurie Garvey, who joins the guilty remnant, with Ann Dowd later of *Handmaid's Tale*, etc. But just as a role, especially in season one, like a lot of what you're doing is like silent work because you all take that vow of silence, right? And you're getting the dolls made of the family members at the table. It's just creepy stuff. But anyway, like, wasn't it like having to portray without dialogue, facial expressions, to get that role across? I mean, that must have been a huge challenge.
Yeah, I mean it was unique, and Damon Lindelof, I mean we were making it up, right?
Yeah.
Like that we would get these scripts and obviously I had no dialogue, and but my presence was always really stimulating to whatever, so
Oh
there'd
yeah.
be these lines like Laurie Garvey shows up, everybody freaks out, we don't know what Laurie's thinking. I would call up Damon, I was like, well, I need to know what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You just
So
like,
you would have those conversations of what
oh
you were
yeah.
thinking,
I mean,
but
I
yeah,
would say
yeah,
just, I mean, it was beautiful though. It was like being a silent movie actress. I was like, just
yeah,
talk to me. Yeah. And,
yeah,
I think yeah, it was complete. And, the first season of any show, particularly that show, it's like that mo moment in Apocalypse Now. It was like, who's running? We're like, ain't you? Like, we were in
yeah,
Vortex in New York and Damon was back in LA. And the incredible, halfway through the first season, my friend Mimi Leader came in and she righted the ship. Um, because when you're doing something there was no template for what we were doing, and specifically for Lori. There was nothing to look to, really. The stuff I looked to, honestly, were in theater, right? So
yeah,
because I was a dancer way back when, I was like, oh, I've performed without language, just not on camera.
yeah,
So it was just getting used to having the camera up my nose, and part of what I really like about camera work is, I have a very mobile face. That's kind of why I get hired. So
nice
like I had
mobile
to
face,
trust my thought is going to register.
right?
But it was beautiful. I mean, we were way, way out there. And, for me coming, because I did 6 years on private practice, which was also a
Yeah,
wonderful experience. And, Shonda Rhimes' aesthetic is just more glamorous. And we wore a lot of makeup and it was like just a lot of fun. But then I was like, well, I wanted to do something different. And it was whiplash because I went from, basically wearing like drag queen makeup, like a lot of makeup, to nada.
right.
And the first time I saw my face, my bare face, on the rough cut of the pilot, because I'm usually not a very vain actress, but I was like, holy shit, I've never seen my face that unadorned.
You mean
And
going from Violet Turner in Private Practice to Laurie Garvey in Leftovers was like a shock to you, even like at first?
yeah, and then also like ABC, most network, like most actors I know want to be a little bit more raw. The network allows. They're like, well, they light you up and make you look pretty, and because you're a series regular, that you got to be appealing. And then I realized, like, wow, HBO, it's like they'll just throw you under the bus and film it. Like they felt like completely unprotected, which is why Mimi coming in, because I was doing weird things. It's not even worth going into, but I was protecting myself in certain ways. And then I realized, like, I don't think I can do this role and protect myself. I think I have to be really really out there. And so when Mimi came in, I said, will you protect me, kind of as a female, frankly, just, and she's like, yes. And I was like, great. And as long as I have a sturdy container and I can trust that I am loved and cared for, quite literally, then I'll go. But if you
Yeah,
don't, it's like in life, right? If you
yeah,
don't feel safe, you're going to sort of not go fully into it. So once Mimi came along, and she was a wonderful partner for Damon, she was with us till the end. Then and I just fell in love with Lori. I mean, she's just a truth teller. And Damon and I, Damon's just an extraordinary person. He and his wife and I are actually really politically active together, particularly in the repo rights space. Um, and he loves complicated women. He loves complicated characters.
yeah.
And it was a joy. Yeah, and it was pre-pandemic. So during the pandemic, when people had time and were rediscovering it, it was so prescient. And maybe because I was a religion major way back when, but I really looked at the whole thing as a prayer, like this whole heart opening, not unlike the moment we're in now, where it's
Yeah.
like, what's going on and how can I serve and how can I help people? And, runs really deep. People
It's
come up to me on the street when they know me from Leftovers and like almost have tears in their eyes often. And I'll say, do you need to talk about the leftovers?
Yeah,
I
that
feel
you
like a
you know,
rabbi,
you can tell from the teary eyes. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's so point. It's true, and there's a lot of great shows at that time in that era. But I think what you're saying is exactly why it still resonates with folks because yeah, I know it was based on the book itself when it came that it was sort of based on was like I at least I think an allegory for how family members just vanished at 9/11 and now almost like a rapture. And then you're saying now in COVID it resonates again because again family members just vanished from the dinner table.
Yeah,
It, it's
it's kind of, I mean, Tom Rada, who was incredible and was with us as an EP, it's a great read. It's very satirical. I mean, he wrote Election too. I mean, he has
right,
this
right.
incredible wit. Damon went, and I honestly don't, because sometimes I feel like we got back some of Tom's wit in the second and third episodes. The first episode is like unbearably bleak and it's very interesting. I love all the seasons, but I do feel like we sort of circled back to some of Tom's wit in the second and third season. But really it's again, it's not unlike this particular moment where we have this, in my opinion, hostile government takeover right now,
Mm.
and I have to go to work and buy toothpaste, right? So this
Right, right.
moment, like, how do we function when there's something do we stop? I mean, it's all valid, right? And so the guilty remnant were the people that said, we are not, he's sort of like Cory Booker, we're not going business as usual. We are stopping. And our very presence is going to remind culture that this thing happened, right?
Yeah.
But then other people, it's like, the activists I know, like, no, it's like really a badass move to like have a good day, and go out dancing. And I read this great thing of Larry Kramer, who wrote Normal Heart.
Yeah.
He described during during the height of the AIDS protests before
Mm.
things started to shift, they would bury their friends in the morning, protest in the afternoon, and go out dancing every night. And I
That's
was
the
like,
full human
yeah,
experience.
I was like, well, that's pretty much how you show up, and all are important, So I think that's what Tom's kind of touching on too, of like, um, yeah, I mean, I think what he said is it was literally when George W. Bush, after the towers came down, said it's an American thing to go to the mall. But Tom was like, is it? It might
Yeah.
be. I don't know, But do we keep on keeping on or do we stop? And obviously I played a person who just stops.
Yeah. It's just I get chills thinking about that show. No one laughs
Oh,
at God
thank
in the
you.
hospital. I mean, some of those. Holy Wayne. It makes
Holy
you think. It makes you
Wayne.
think.
I know.
Uh,
Margaret Qualley, beautiful Margaret Qualley played my daughter. Like
yeah. Oh yeah.
I still feel very maternal when I see her amazingness.
Yeah, oh yeah, dominating now. It's so many, and Carrie Coon. The cast is unbelievable. But yeah, like you're saying, you wrapped it around perfectly to Arena Stage and the timeliness of everything. And yes, a farce is what we need. So come see
Um,
Amy Brenneman in Fake It Until You Make It at Arena
yep.
Stage now through May 4th. Thank you so much for doing
You're
this.
welcome, Jason. Thank you.
Be
All
well.
right.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.